Welcome back. Now, Rising Stars goes global today. We feature EdCast, a personal learning network which enhances human ability to collaborate and learn across education materials, instructors, students and employers.
In fact, joining us today is Karl Mehta, founder and CEO of EdCast. But before we speak to Karl, a little something about a special guest. Karl, in fact, has been instrumental in founding the Code for India hackathon that Silicon Valley hosted for Prime Minister Modi when he visited America last month with a mantra that wants you to think local, hack global. Code for India aims to build scalable technology solutions for non-profit and social causes that will enable them to have a greater impact on society.
Absolutely. Karl, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting.
So we're very excited first and foremost to hear about how the hackathon went, that you collaborated, I think, with Google to host it for the Prime Minister.
That's correct, yeah. So Code for India is a non-profit based in Silicon Valley, and we have chapters now in India. And we bring together tech community together to solve social impact problems, mainly in India. Okay. And the hackathon in Silicon Valley was one of our many hackathons that we do, but it had a special focus for digital India since the Prime Minister was visiting and was very successful. And Google CEO Sundar Pichai was very generous, and he collaborated with us. And we built about 55 different apps and projects, just stayed all night up and, Silicon Valley style, like looking at problems, solving together. Wow. And making it happen, and then we showed a lot of projects to the Prime Minister.
I actually want to know what was his take on it. What did he feel? Because I'm sure this is something which has been core to the Silicon Valley. This is something which is core, of the whole culture there. What did the Prime Minister feel about it?
Well, the first thing is that our Prime Minister is probably the most tech-savvy politician that I've seen worldwide, not just in India.
Okay.
And in all my interactions with him, when he hears about technology, he jumps on it. He's almost like a kid in a candy store. And so when the first time when I proposed that, hey, we are going to do a hackathon, he immediately agreed, through the ambassador. And I think it is the first time ever any Prime Minister of any country has ever been to a hackathon. Okay. And in fact, when I worked at the White House, we started that hackathon culture at the White House as well.
Okay.
And so the Prime Minister's reaction was that I absolutely want to be in a hackathon. I want to actually meet engineers at the grassroots level, because the digital India vision is so huge, and in a country like 1.2 billion people, it's only going to happen if things become a movement at the ground level and not just a top-down policy or a vision statement.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your story as well, Karl, because you've been very active and you've been a pioneer, particularly in the edtech space. Talk to us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So when I worked at the White House, I was exposed to a lot of infrastructure, or at the structural level, the education problems. So in the United States, we are grappling with $1 trillion of educational crisis. Higher ed is almost overpriced. And then when I look at the developing countries like India, you have a massive skills gap, because we have lots of people, almost 1 million people who are in the workforce age. So they're entering the workforce, but they have to have skills so that they can either be employed or they can create employment. And we're not going to generate 1 million jobs a month. So there is a huge skills gap in a country like India. And so I'm very passionate about solving that, because it's not just about building a good business. This is my 4th company, but the degree of social impact and social transformation that we can bring to this country, that is very, very critical at this stage. So at EdCast, what we are doing is trying out a whole new model of learning. So for the past several hundred years, learning has been always a one-to-many, where you have an instructor or a person who has knowledge, and you put that person in a room or in an online site, and then you have hundreds and thousands of other people learning from that. Okay. Well, that's not scalable in a country like ours, because the ability to find qualified instructors, who are well qualified, enough number of them, having that physical or online infrastructure, very, very hard. So we are flipping the model into saying, well, we don't need an instructor. How about going from one to many to many to many?
Okay.
And in many to many, we are leveraging the social media behavior that we are all very much wired into. All of us, in fact, 2 billion people worldwide, are spending 5 times a day on social media, right? Every few hours we are checking our Facebook and Twitter, and maybe here more WhatsApp. So why not use that behavior and create a culture of lifelong learning? And that will bridge the skills gap faster, because I would rather learn from you or some of my friends very quickly, absorb it, rather than enrolling into this boring traditional classes and listening to an instructor or a bozo whom I don't believe has the qualified knowledge.
Right. So Karl, the interesting bit out here is We've been seeing a lot of activity when it comes to the entire education, ecosphere as far as startups are concerned. Locally as well, there's been a lot of action there. What really sets you apart here from some of the other names? Is the peer-to-peer bit, is that the big differentiating factor?
Absolutely. So I think we are throwing away all the traditional thinking around education and skilling. So the traditional thinking, as I mentioned, is a classroom or a course is a context, right? Everything in learning, when we were growing up, it's always about a course.
Right.
Whether, you go to an educational institution, they will give you here's our fall catalog, here's our summer catalog, and they'll put a big enroll button and you hit an enroll button.
Sure.
We think that the whole course context is too long form. Today's youth, we all have short attention span. And we all want to be, connected with our friends and learn socially. So it's a completely different context of giving away with the course context, giving away with the classroom, giving away with just long form or an instructor driven, and just leveraging the media, the social media and the plumbing infrastructure that already exists, and then learning from each other.
Karl, you're in Silicon Valley, which is the heart of innovation. As you said, you yourself have had like 4 companies that you started up. Do you see some of that culture starting here in India?
Yes, so I've been very encouraged with, this is my second trip to India in this year, 2015. Wow. And I'm seeing that every time when I come here, the startup ecosystem is getting, gaining momentum and getting stronger and stronger. Obviously, we still have a lot of work to do here. It's not just about capital and venture VCs coming in and just startup entrepreneurs just starting companies. We need to have a lot of enabling infrastructure so that anyone with an idea can really get the right mentorship and they can build the company also in the right way. And there's a lot of money flowing in, but if we start burning a lot of cash like what we are seeing with a lot of startups here, we'll soon have not just a correction, but then if you go through a bust cycle from the boom cycle, then it can discourage a lot of people and then it will kind of hinder the growth of this startup ecosystem.
So what's the next level as far as EdCast is concerned? How do you plan to grow? If you were to talk to you probably a year or two hence from now, what's going to be different?
Well, the influencers are key to creating any kind of a knowledge network, because ultimately people in the society, the youth, the young people, or even anyone who wants to learn something, we all look up to our role models. That's depending on whatever field of work you are. If I'm in architecture, I have some great architects. If I'm a doctor, I have some great doctors that I look up to. So we are trying to bring in a lot of influencers to start sharing their knowledge and creating this new culture that, look, if I have knowledge in some area, I should start sharing it. So we have been sharing a lot of our personal life. Look at how much on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere people are exposing or sharing their personal life. And that's one good thing that whatever, the Zuckerbergs of the world has tried to bring in. I want to take that culture to the next level, which is saying, fine, it's okay or not okay whether you want to share your personal life or not. Can you please share your knowledge and insights? Because the world is hungry about that. If you start sharing your knowledge and insights, we're going to take the world to the next level. We're going to take India to the next level. And that's how we're going to create a lifelong learning culture, which is very much needed in knowledge economy.
So which have been the prime influences right now on EdCast? Sure. If you could name a couple of key personalities that have already been sharing the knowledge on this platform.
So we have a lot of global influencers, like people like Mitch Kapor, the founder of Lotus Corporation and Kapor Capital. He is like, iconic as a tech visionary, almost as Bill Gates level. Okay. And he's at casting regularly. We have from politics, we have the former Defense Secretary, Dr. William Perry, who is also a Stanford Emeritus Professor, and he's an expert in politics, and he's at casting and putting his live content on EdCast. A lot of these leaders are also live streaming. So, they get to their office in the morning, they take the EdCast app, and then they are connecting to their followers and imparting knowledge just for free, 10 minutes insights. We have from the music industry, we have icons like Scooter Braun, who has several million followers on Twitter, and he is the guy who identified Justin Bieber and manages Ariana Grande. So from every field, we have this very global iconic people who are starting to do EdCasting. Wow. And in India, we are just about to start, and we'll be looking for a lot of influencers who are willing to share their knowledge.
Yeah.
Karl, talking about knowledge, any tips you'd like to leave our young entrepreneurs with? I mean, you were, once again, I just want to bring up, your experience at the hackathon as well. What were the results? I mean, what really stood out to you? What are the key takeaways that you can leave some of our young entrepreneurs with?
Sure. Well, the number one thing is that having a mindset of giving back to the society is very critical. So, we have to become a society of givers. because we're not going to build the nation by just saying that, well, creating wealth is important, and you can't give back until you've created wealth. So that's important, but we should not lose the perspective that even while whatever talent, whatever skills, whatever knowledge we have, we should be thinking about giving back. And so the Hackathon and Code for India as an organization is a great example where I have tech volunteers every weekend. They sacrifice their family and their personal life on Saturday, and they come to Google headquarters with me, and we are sitting and coding for several hours. So that is an example of something that I would like to talk to entrepreneurs and say, adopt that culture, and it's very fulfilling. Besides your startups and your dreams and all of that, in fact, even few hours of giving back to the society in a week, that is highly fulfilling. And it also helps you, by the way, in your professional life, because the more you give, the more you receive, actually.
Right.
And it also sharpens your knowledge as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Karl, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you and getting a perspective on all the action and some of the energy that's really...
It's an interesting data for a simple reason. This is something which has always been a big difficulty, trying to touch base with influencers, with some of the, some of your role models. So that's an interesting one to actually look forward to, and as in looking to launch in India as well pretty soon.
All right, that's where we leave it on this edition, though. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye for now.
Thank you.